The 2016 iPhone 7 and 7 Plus are known for losing the headphone jack, but they're also both very solid phones and have aged really well, feeling fast even on the latest version of iOS 13. Hey, how's it going? I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and today we're taking a look at the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus. How did they hold up in 2020, and are they still worth buying? The iPhone 7 and 7 Plus were made to be kind of in-between devices as Apple prepared for the next year's iPhone 10. But that doesn't mean they didn't bring anything to the table. Water resistance, capacitive and thus faster home button, a second telephoto camera in the 7 Plus. The iPhone 7 was a decent-sized upgrade to the 6S, albeit not a huge one. But you're probably not interested in that so much as whether or not the 7 is still worth picking up, so let's start with that. In 2020, the iPhone 7 definitely feels older. That home button setup does feel a bit antiquated next to the newest iPhone. But to be fair, I know a lot of people actually prefer it, so it's really just a matter of preference. Actually using the iPhone 7 doesn't feel too old, as it is on the latest version of iOS 13 and should continue to get updates at least until the September of 2021, although personally, I would guess it'll get until 2022, if not further, just based on some of Apple's patterns in the past when it comes to iPhone updates. The iPhone 7 is no longer being sold by Apple, so you'll probably have to turn to the used or refurbished market. You might find them from some carriers, although they might be overpricing them, so watch out for that. But on eBay.com, they only cost $150 US, so yeah, that's kind of a great deal. There's a certain point where no matter how much better the newest iPhone is, it doesn't really matter because the value proposition for the iPhone 7 is just so good. The iPhone 7 isn't perfect, and that namely comes down to battery life. The 7 Plus battery is a lot better because it's bigger, but the smaller 7 does often have issues, so that's something to watch out for. Even if your 7 has a perfectly healthy battery, it's not going to be great, so make sure you have a charger nearby. That's definitely the biggest benefit of getting the 7 Plus, although there are a couple more. First is that second camera lens, which allows for portrait mode photos, and then there's also an extra gigabyte of RAM. And of course, the phone is bigger. I suppose that's a benefit. At the end of the day, I'd recommend going for the phone that feels better in the hand over features, because yeah, the 7 Plus is better, but it's also more money. So for me, it really comes down to just what feels more comfortable. But yeah, there's the answer right out of the gate. The iPhone 7 is worth buying used or refurbished. $150 is a really good price point. But now let's take a step back and talk about the design. The iPhone 7 was the last all-aluminum iPhone, and it came in a lot of different colors. Gold, rose gold, silver, matte black, jet black, and a special edition red color. The jet black is actually a super unique color in that it has a different kind of glossy finish. It doesn't feel like aluminum, and while it scratches really easily, I really like it. It is very unique. I also really love the matte black I have here. I honestly think the iPhone 7 is one of the best years when it comes to colors for iPhones, particularly with the blacks. They just look really good. On the front of the phone, we have either a 4.7 or 5.5 inch display, depending on whether you get the smaller 7 or the Plus. Both screens look pretty good, and while the pixel density is slightly better on the Plus, you probably won't notice the difference. Under the screen, we have the capacitive home button. It's a bit different in that it doesn't actually physically click, but instead mimics a click by vibrating. That might sound weird, but you'll get used to it, and it's better because it's actually faster than a physical button. It also has Touch ID, which is blazing fast and still a great way to get into your iPhone. On the bottom of the phone, we have the Lightning port and no headphone jack. I'm mentioning this because it's the first iPhone without a headphone jack, so that's something to keep in mind with the 7. The feel of this phone is good. It's a pretty nice balance of being light and thin, as newer iPhones have gotten thicker, heavier, and more fragile as they've moved to glass backs. This is probably the last iPhone I'd be willing to use without a case, although you probably still want a case just in case. You're welcome. Let's talk about the cameras. We have the 12 megapixel rear sensor on the back here, and on the 7 Plus we have a second 12 megapixel telephoto lens. The second lens allows for 2x zoom as well as portrait mode photos that blur the background behind the subject. Overall, from these photos, you can see that in the right conditions, the iPhone 7 is fine. It takes alright photos, not nearly as good as the iPhone 11, but considering that $150 price tag, it's pretty tough to complain. For video, we can shoot in 4K at up to 30 frames per second, and video does look pretty decent. Definitely good enough for most people's standards. The selfie camera is an improvement over the iPhone 6S with 7 megapixels. This is a fine selfie, I suppose. Could be better, but also could be worse. The camera on the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus are by no means spectacular, but they don't have to be. When you're paying so relatively little for such a functional, pretty good smartphone, you don't have a lot of room to complain. And so I'd say the iPhone 7 is more than satisfactory in this department. But let's go over the most interesting subject ever created, tech specs. We have Apple's A10 chipset and either 2 or 3 gigabytes of RAM, depending on whether or not you get the smaller 7 or the 7 Plus. While the Plus does have more RAM, performance between the two really shouldn't feel much different, so I wouldn't worry about that. The phone performs really well considering the age, and honestly can do almost anything the iPhone 11 can do, at least on a software level. iOS 13 feels good here, and the benefit of going with an iPhone is at least another couple years of support. Honestly, I don't think I could recommend not going for the iPhone 7 if it's right at your price range, because it really is a great phone with few downsides considering the value. Battery life is an aspect that again can be rough in the smaller 7, but if you can live with that or get the 7 Plus, you should be fine. Obviously, you're gonna have a better experience buying the iPhone XR or 11, especially with battery life, but what you get here for around $150 is pretty darn great. Should you buy the iPhone 7? It completely depends on your situation and general price range, and whether or not you think this is the phone for you. That being said, is the iPhone 7 worth buying? Absolutely. It might not be the best phone, it may not have the best specs, it's not blazing fast anymore, it doesn't have the greatest camera, but it's at a really good price for what you get, so the value is there. And with that, I think I'm pretty much done here. Do you have an iPhone 7? Are you thinking about getting one? Let me know in the comments down below. If this video helped you out or you found it interesting, maybe hit that like button and consider subscribing for more content just like this. You can follow me over on Twitter and Instagram at 91_tech if you'd like to for some reason. And with that all being said, thank you so much for watching. I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and I will see you all next time.